If you've ever opened your banking app and felt the heat rise in your face, I know that scene. I remember the month my rent hit while my card was still limping from the week before. The string of just this once deliveries that somehow became 3 times a week, the overdraft that arrived like a punchline. I did not climb out because I suddenly became a different person. I got out because I found 10 quiet money secrets that didn't require heroic willpower or an economics degree. They required a new room for my money to live in, a set of rules that worked on tired Tuesdays and tempted Fridays. These are the 10 that transformed me from scrambling to secure, from reactive to free. They won't look flashy on Instagram, and that's the point. Real wealth is what happens when your plan doesn't need your best mood to function. The first secret was the least glamorous and the most important. I stopped relying on willpower and put my money on rails. When your paycheck lands in the same account you use for groceries, you host a knife fight between rent and takeout every time you tap your card. I lost that fight weekly. So I changed the plumbing. All income landed in a staging account with no card attached. Week 1 of my cycle, a bills-only account drafted the essentials that keep a basic life running: shelter and the maintenance that prevents bigger repairs later, utilities and baseline internet, transportation I actually used, insurance that moved catastrophe off my balance sheet, and minimums on any debt. The day after payday, small transfers refilled labeled pockets for the surprises I could already predict: repairs and replacements, medical copays and prescriptions, seasonal energy spikes, modest gifts and social plans, a kid's field trip, pet care, the annual bills that always used to ambush me. Every Friday morning, a weekly spending card reloaded with the number that carried groceries and ordinary life for 7 days. On payday itself, a savings transfer and an investing drip left staging before any mood could intervene. In a single weekend, savings stopped being a debate and became the default exit for my money. I didn't become a monk. I made forgetting my future hard to do. The second secret was to build a floor before I tried to build a tower. Emergencies aren't just expensive, they're sudden. Without a buffer, a tire turns into a 24% APR problem and a dentist becomes a late fee plus stress. I started an emergency fund and labeled it like a person I cared about: floor, do not touch. 1 month of essential expenses was the first milestone. I celebrated it like I'd won a prize. Essentials were not everything I liked, they were the bills that keep a basic life functioning: shelter, power, water, connection, transportation, insurance, minimum debt payments, and decent food. After that, I pushed toward 3 to 6 months, depending on how stable my income felt. When the target seemed ridiculous, I shrank the unit until it was survivable: 10 or 20 every payday, automated so I didn't have to be in the mood to do it. The floor did not make emergencies disappear. It turned them into invoices I could pay without torching my plan. That single buffer changed my posture. I stopped bracing for impact and started planning for progress. The third secret was to make my value legible so my income could compound. Raises and rate increases don't arrive because you work hard. They show up when your value is easy to hire. I began collecting proof, not praise. Once a week, I wrote a single sentence that tied my work to an outcome: minutes saved by a process I built, errors prevented by a checklist I created, refunds reduced by a message I rewrote, revenue added by a small tweak. After 6 months, I had a raise case that was receipts, not vibes. Anytime I delivered the same outcome twice, I productized it, gave it a name, a scope, a timeline, and a price. Onboarding starter for busy managers, calendar cleanup for clinics, launch day playbook for local shops. That transformed hours into assets: templates, playbooks, snippets, code that kept paying after the meeting ended. My income began to compound the way a portfolio does, quietly, because the outcomes were clear and easy to buy. The fourth secret was to automate ownership and keep it boring. I had to abandon the fantasy that I would beat the market with charisma and mood. I didn't need a hot stock or my cousin's secret. I needed broad, low-cost ownership of productive companies and a cushion that made me sleep at night. My core became a low-fee stock index fund that covered the total market. An S&P 500 fund would also have done. Partnered with a total international fund so I owned the world, plus a sleeve of high-quality bonds sized to my nerves. Contributions happened on payday automatically. Dividends reinvested. I rebalanced by calendar, my birthday and half-birthday, nudging my mix back to target without consulting my feelings. When curiosity buzzed, I kept a tiny sandbox separate, so the worst thing an experiment could become was tuition, not disaster. Markets fell and rose and fell again. My plan didn't care. It just kept buying when life was loud and leaving the engine alone when I was tempted to tinker. That is the most underrated secret in money. Boredom that you can obey. The fifth secret was to give my savings rate a raise every year by rule. Lifestyle creep is stealthy. It speaks in "you deserve it" and "just this once." I needed a counterspell. For the first 6 months after any raise, I let half lift today. Better groceries, fewer annoyances, a little breathing room. And I forced half to lift tomorrow by thickening my investments and my floor. I also turned on a 1% automatic contribution increase on my work anniversary. If I noticed friction, I paused for a season. This tiny rule is how I made progress without arguments. It removed the element of surprise from lifestyle creep and turned raises into compounding instead of clutter. The sixth secret was to buy proximity before prestige and compress fixed costs on purpose. I used to pay a second rent I couldn't see. Fuel, tires, parking, surge rides, takeout from exhaustion, evenings I never got back, all because I lived far from the places I actually went. When I moved closer, even into a smaller place, my month got cheaper and my life got bigger. I also put negotiation on a calendar. Once a quarter, I made money calls. Telecom, internet, insurance, any subscription with a real price tag. I stayed polite, asked for the current retention offer, and stayed ready to switch. Every win converted immediately. Half boosted investments, half lowered permanent burn by canceling something else or prepaying a necessity. 10 quiet dollars shaved off a monthly bill don't make headlines. They make room for $10 to compound for a decade. This is how my savings rate went up without my life feeling smaller. The seventh secret was to make my phone boring and install time between want and buy. It is not fair to demand discipline from yourself while carrying a casino in your pocket. I moved shopping and trading apps 2 swipes away. I turned off red badges unless they were about safety or work. I logged out of checkouts and deleted saved cards so a purchase took friction I could feel. I installed a weekly buy window so non-essentials waited until Saturday morning. When a desire didn't survive the wait, I moved the price into a pocket called Cart Rescue, so patience paid me. The result was not austerity, it was clarity. I bought fewer costumes for lives I didn't intend to live. My closets looked like they belonged to me, and my investments grew because I stopped feeding them to 5-minute feelings. The eighth secret was a procurement policy: fewer, better, longer. I used to bargain hunt my way into replacing the same cheap thing 3 times. Now I buy used where depreciation is violent, and I buy excellence where failure is expensive. Cars, 2 to 4 years off the lot with clean histories. Solid wood furniture that can be repaired. Hobby gear from optimistic quitters. Meanwhile, I spend unusually well on the items that carry my life. Shoes that protect my body, a mattress that decides my energy, a coat that beats my weather, and the tools I use to earn. I also translate price into time and upkeep before I buy. If after tax I bring home $20 an hour and the jacket is $200, the real price is 10 hours, plus cleaning and eventual replacement. Whispering that number saved me from so many almost purchases I would have forgotten the next week. Fewer things of higher quality cost less over a decade and feel better every day. Wealth loves low upkeep.
The ninth secret was to treat maintenance like rent and insurance like a firewall. Oil changes, tire pressure, roof checks, dentist visits, password audits, backups, filter swaps. These chores aren't sexy, which is why so many of us skip them until a catastrophe shows up at premium prices. I put 2 money and maintenance days on my calendar each year. On those days, I rebalanced investments, projected taxes, verified beneficiaries and titles, shopped insurance, rotated passwords, ran backups, checked filters, checked tires, restocked first aid, and did the dull checks that keep small problems small. I also right-sized my insurance, health coverage that fit how I actually live, term life because someone would be harmed without my income, disability insurance because my ability to earn was my biggest asset early on, liability coverage matched to my actual risks, deductibles sized so my floor could handle them. These moves did not make me feel rich. They made it hard for a bad day to become a bad decade, which is the adult definition of winning. The 10th secret was to match money to time and rebalance by calendar, not by headline. Risk is not a feeling, it's failing to have cash when your life asks for it. Near-term needs live in cash or cash-like assets. Mid-term goals sit in high-quality bonds or a blended mix. Long-term goals stay in broad equities you leave alone. If a milestone is inside 5 years and I would be devastated to miss it, I don't rely on stocks to fund it. If it's a decade away, I let stocks do their compounding work without interruption. I set 2 rebalance dates and made them boring on purpose. In good years, I trimmed winners to refill safe assets. In rough years, I spent from safe assets and let equities heal. The act felt wrong in the moment. That was the point. Rebalancing was my pre-commitment to buy low and sell high without pretending I could predict the future. That single ritual turned noise into background and turned my attention back to my life. If these secrets sound almost too simple, that's because they were engineered for a person who would not always be at their best, me. They were also engineered to survive time. Let me show you how they look in real rooms. A nurse on rotating shifts bled money to surge rides, delivery, and overdrafts, not because she was irresponsible, but because exhaustion is expensive. On a Sunday, she installed rails. Income to staging, no card. Week 1 bills from bills only. Day after payday pocket refills, Friday weekly reload. 2 exhausted night dinners went into the freezer and onto a whiteboard. Shopping apps moved off the home screen. Red badges turned off unless they were about safety or work. She auto-enrolled in her 401k at 10%, captured the match, chose the low-cost target date fund, and set a 1% auto increase. She documented a MedCart layout that saved 12 minutes per shift change and earned a stipend implementing it at a neighboring clinic. That retainer covered her car insurance. 90 days later, late fees were fossils. The first month of essentials lived quietly in her floor, and her portfolio looked boring in the best possible way. She didn't become a different person. Her week kept its promises. 2 teachers lived an hour from school in a bargain. Distance billed them a second rent in fuel, tires, parking, and takeout from fatigue. They saved a 2-month floor and used part to move closer. 1 car disappeared. Groceries became a walk. They rolled old 403Bs into their current plan, chose the cheapest index options, and set a birthday/half-birthday rebalance. 1 productivized a school newsletter starter sold twice a quarter to nearby districts, which covered daycare. Fixed costs fell, contribution rates rose, evenings returned. 10 quiet changes altered their decade more than any flashy hack could have. A self-employed designer wrote a hot quarter into a status watch, a heavy camera she didn't use, and a club membership that turned into homework. She rebuilt as payroll. Invoices hit staging, a tax skim left immediately, a fixed salary landed in bills only, and a Friday reload covered ordinary life. She sold the camera, paused the membership, and moved the cash to a tax reserve and a thicker floor. She packaged Calendar Tamer for small clinics, online booking, autoresponders, intake forms into 2-hour blocks. 3 retainers covered her largest bill monthly. Insurance got right-sized. A sabotage fund appeared without touching the core portfolio. The markets did what the markets do. Her plan did not care. It was designed for turbulence. If you're starting late, the secrets still welcome you. Catch-up contributions exist for a reason. 1 more year of work does more than add contributions. It shortens the withdrawal runway and can lift benefits. Thicken the bond sleeve to match your sleep, hold a year or 2 of withdrawals in cash-like assets, and let equities keep their long-term job of outrunning inflation. Rebalance by calendar. Spend from the buffer in bad years, refill the buffer in good years. Wealth late is still wealth. Most people don't get there because they confuse regret with a plan. If you're early and income is tight, begin embarrassingly small. 5 or 10 every payday into the floor, 5 or 10 into the index fund, and a 1% auto increase each year or each raise. Add a monthly 5-minute rebuy ritual. Open statements, scroll to recurring charges, and ask, would I buy this again today at this price if it vanished tonight? Cancel what fails the test and route the exact dollars to your floor before you close the tab. Add a weekly buy window so non-essentials wait. The difference between I'm bad at money and money is getting easier is usually friction, not character. Let me land this with a start-to-night plan you can actually do without lighting your life on fire. Rename 2 bank accounts so even future you can't pretend to forget. staging, no card, and bills only. Point all income to staging. Move autopays for essentials to bills only and align due dates in week 1. Create a pocket labeled floor, do not touch, and set a transfer so small it's almost funny. Schedule a Friday morning weekly reload for groceries and ordinary life. Log into your retirement plan or brokerage, choose the cheapest broad index fund or a target date fund, turn on dividend reinvestment, and add an automatic contribution on payday. Small is fine. Move shopping and trading apps off your home screen and turn off red badges that aren't about safety or work. Tape a single sentence inside a cabinet you open daily that describes enough, the tools and comforts that make your week actually work. Put 2 cheap joys on next week's calendar so boredom stops recruiting your card. You just converted 10 secrets into a room where wealth is the default behavior. A year from now, this won't feel like fireworks. It will feel like the absence of panic. Bills drafting without drama, groceries fitting under a weekly roof, a quiet pile of cash for bad Tuesdays, and an investing app that bores you, and a raise case that reads like a receipt. You'll still have problems, mortals always do, but you won't be renting the same ones at premium rates. That's when wealth begins to feel ordinary in the best way. That's when you realize the secrets were never secrets at all. They were habits that survived your moods and let time do what time does. If you want one sentence to carry forward, let it be this: design a week that keeps its promises, and the next 10 years will keep theirs.